After lying dormant for entirely too long, the Acura Integra is finally back for 2023. But in that time, while it's been away, Acura has changed quite a lot as a brand, and this resulting revival is a very different kind of Integra compared to its predecessors. My name is Jake Stump, and Hot Cars brought me in here as the resident Honda Acura nerd and fanboy to figure out if the new 2023 Acura Integra is any good. So let's hit the road and find out. Where to begin with the Acura Integra? Well, as Hot Cars resident Honda Acura fanboy and nerd, I suppose I should give you a little bit of context into this. Since debuting in the 1980s, the Integra has always represented Acura's take on a fancier, more innovative version of the Honda Civic. The last iteration of the Integra that we received was dubbed RSX. Though it's going to be a pedantic about it, technically the ILX was kind of an Integra successor in a way, but we don't count that car because it was terrible. Anywho, the last Integra that we care about, dubbed DC5, came out in 2002 and was around until 2006 when it was replaced by the Honda Civic Si 8th Gen. Since then, there has been no new Integra, which is why people were really excited when Acura said it's coming back. And true to form, this new Integra really is a fancier Honda Civic. But there's a bit of a caveat to that. Previous Integra models often came with a better chassis, bigger brakes, better suspension, bigger, often new, innovative engines you couldn't get in the comparable Honda Civic. This Integra does it backwards because this is based on the 11th gen Honda Civic Si, which debuted for 2022. It has all of the Civic Si's hardware. It has the same L15 engine under the hood. It's a 1.5 liter turbo 4. Now you might think that Acura spiced that engine up a bit, gave it more power than the Civic Si. But you would be wrong because it produces the exact same 200 horsepower and 192 pound-feet of torque as the Honda. In the case of our tester, it also has the identical 6-speed manual transmission with a helical limited slip diff. Though Integra does delineate from Civic a bit by offering an automatic as standard, you actually have to pay more to get a stick, which is a very interesting choice. The standard engine is actually the automatic transmission out of a Honda Civic. It's a CVT, a continuously variable automatic transmission in an Integra. Yikes. Though granted, if you're watching Hot Cars reviews, you are likely an enthusiast and you will want the stick. And it's definitely the one to get if you can afford it. The manual is only available on the highest trim level of Integra. This vehicle costs $37,000. That's a more than $8,000 price premium over a comparable Civic Si. And so if the powertrains are identical, surely you have to get more from this experience. You do, but like everything else with this car, there are caveats. The Integra has the same basic chassis as the Civic Si, right down to things like the size of the sway bars, the size of the wheels and tires. It's pretty much all the same there. The only real difference is the inclusion of adaptive dampers. Not only do they adjust firmness based on the drive mode you select between comfort, sport, normal, or individual, but they also adjust for imperfections in the road, and to their credit, the ride quality is sublime. The Civic Si, in my opinion, strikes a nice balance between sportiness and comfort, but it is a much firmer ride than the Integra. Now you may think to yourself, adaptive dampers, well that's pretty cool, and you're right, it is cool technology. It was also cool when it debuted in the Civic Si back in 2016 as standard equipment. Honda actually took it out of the Civic Si for the 11th generation, only to put it back in the Integra and charge you a lot more money for it, which does feel a bit disingenuous to me. You'll notice that's a common theme throughout this review, that as a Honda fan, I feel a bit betrayed by this experience and by what the brand is doing. Dynamically, the package is fine. It's not great, it's not bad, it's so-so. I will say, I like the ride comfort. This is a very comfortable ride around town. And as far as handling goes, because it's basically an 11th gen Civic Si with nicer shocks, of course it flows on a winding road. But The experience is numb overall. The steering is numb. The clutch pedal has no weight and is numb, and as delightfully tight as this 6-speed shifter is, because there is zero feedback in this car anywhere else, from the engine to the steering to the clutch, it makes the experience just feel a bit clumsy because you never quite know what the car is doing. You get no feedback in this thing other than these plain Jane all-season tires howling in protest as soon as you even look at a corner the wrong way. At least the Civic Si includes summer tires as an option for like, what, 300 bucks? I have to say, all of this pains me a little bit because I learned to drive stick in my friend's RSX Type S over 15 years ago. I grew up in the passenger seat of my friends' Integras and Civics. I own and race an old Civic Si. This is a brand I want to see succeed, but they just keep dropping the ball. So it's very, very disappointing to have the new Integra come out and have it be such a mediocre experience. For $37,000, you want a lot more than 200 horsepower. You just do. It's just, I don't get what they were thinking here, other than the fact that maybe they just put absolutely no time or effort into developing this car because they know that the electrified future is around the corner and that Honda is so far behind the rest of the pack in that regard. So maybe they just put this out as a sort of cash grab so to keep Acura on life support while they can try and figure out how to make an electric car. Rubbing salt in the wound, again, especially as a Honda fanboy, is the fact that I just reviewed the 2022 Volkswagen Jetta GLI, which got updated for 2022. You can find our review on the channel. And it pains me to say, but that is what you should absolutely get over this. You can get into a GLI Autobahn for what, over $4,000 less than this. It has the same cool chassis hardware. It has adaptive dampers, limited slip diff, and actually has bigger brakes off the old Golf R. It has a much more potent 2-liter turbocharged engine that somehow gets the same fuel economy as this much smaller, less impressive one. And you get more equipment and an arguably nicer interior experience. You get the same premium audio, but you get heated and ventilated power seats, things like that, all for a lot less money. So I'm trying to understand what Acura was thinking when they priced this thing the way they did and just didn't really change anything substantially from the Civic Si. I mean, if you think this experience is fine, just save over $8 grand and buy a Civic Si, because if you just need a car, that's a car and it's fine. If the new Acura Integra is a bit underwhelming behind the wheel, maybe there's something else going on in this interior to make it feel more like a luxury car. Because you know, Acura is a luxury brand. It should be the jump up from Honda in that regard. So let's pull over and see what's really going on in here. Mercifully, at least the interior is a clear upgrade over the Civic Si, and I can say it's a clear upgrade because it's so obvious to see where all the Honda Civic parts are in the interior. Take, for example, this dashboard, which is actually a one-for-one rip-off of what you get in the Honda Civic Touring. It's actually a little nicer than what you get in the Civic Si because this driver display here is a nicer screen. So this is all Honda Civic common, right down to the infotainment display and the HVAC control panel right down here. Though Integra does delineate from Civic Si by offering dual zone climate control and heated front seats, which are, again, features that came standard in a 2016 Civic Si that they took out of the new one to put back in the Integra and charge you more. Are you following along with the theme here? Because this is a Honda Civic Dash, everything that's good in the Honda Civic is good here. You have wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto connectivity because our Integra has the fully loaded tech package. This infotainment display is nice because it's a Civic system. It works quite well and uses a mixture of the touchscreen physical knobs and buttons as you'd like. Everything in here falls to hand quite nicely and is very intuitive to use while driving. That aforementioned tech package also includes things like wireless phone charging and Acura's 16-speaker ELS 3D audio system, which is a notable improvement over what you get in the Civic Si. The sound system, like all Acuras with ELS audio, is truly, truly top tier. So if you're an audiophile, this will certainly impress you. Another area where Acura stands out from the Civic is with these seats, which are absolutely gorgeous to Acura's credit. Now, while the Civic Si only comes in one interior color combination, you can get the Integra in several, depending on the exterior color you choose. In our case, this has the contrasting black, dark gray, and red, and I love the red seats and the red door cards. It makes this experience feel so much more upscale and so much more premium, as you would expect from the inflated price point. Similar to the Civic Si, the Integra benefits from a very, very adjustable seating position. Now, I'm 6'1", I have the seat in the lowest position, it's my personal preference. It makes me feel very connected to the drive when a seat is lower down because I'm used to racing bucket seats in my cars. But still, whether you're a 5'1" shorty or a 6'7" basketball player, there's plenty of room in here, which is just very nice and harder to find in this segment than you might expect. And similar to the Civic sedan, the back seat is capacious. I can fit behind myself in the second row, no problem, which is a funny thing to point out because the larger Acura TLX, which this clearly draws stylistic inspiration from, actually has a smaller back seat than this, despite being a full segment size larger. And of course, while the Civic Si is a sedan, the Integra is a liftback or hatchback, depending on how you want to call it. So the trunk opening is quite large, and there's 22 cubic feet of storage space, which is pretty impressive, though it's worth noting that that liftback shape and the resulting design of the quarter panels back there means that there is a pretty notable over-the-shoulder blind spot while you're driving. The quarter glass is absolutely tiny, and Acura has made these massive panels inside the trunk that just really reduce the amount of visibility you have back there while driving, which is annoying, but mercifully this thing does have blind spot monitoring, so hopefully that works quite well for you. All right, that's the interior out of the way. I wish there was more to talk about in here for this $37,000 price point, but you've pretty much seen it all. So let's hit the road and kind of wrap things up here. I suppose the moral of this story is to temper your expectations. I'm not talking about us, the consumers, I'm talking to Acura directly. In the lead up to the Integra launching, they jumped on the hype train. I mean, they could not help themselves, tying back to previous Integra models and the RSX and saying, remember when we used to build fun cars that you actually cared about? And then they drop this and it's so mediocre that while as an automobile, it's perfectly fine transportation, if that's all you care about, as an Integra, it becomes another letdown, just like the ILX was always a letdown. It's funny, this reminds me so much of when Acura showed off its next generation TLX back in 2020, I believe. They made a big fuss about how it has an all-new architecture with double wishbone suspension, like old Acuras that you guys used to care about. And then it came and went. It was a mediocre, boring car that never really did anything special. Even the Type S ended up being a letdown with a fragile powertrain that overheated if you looked at a winding road the wrong way. And so even if this Integra gets a Type S version in the future, I'm not holding my hopes up high, and based off this driving experience, neither should you guys, sad to say. And it pains me to say this because as I keep mentioning throughout this review, I'm a Honda Acura fanboy. I want these brands to succeed, but they just keep messing it up. This is a car that will sell to people who only buy Honda or Acura products and refuse to buy anything else. And for those people, this is certainly a car. It will get you from point A to point B. For anyone else, just don't bother. Go look at anything else. You have to have a Honda product. Go buy the Civic Si and save over $8 grand and get 95% of this experience. Or go look at the VW Jetta GLI. That's like a real dark horse that blew my mind how good that was, and people are totally sleeping on it. Or really anything else, because the sport compact car segment is so hot right now. I mean, you can buy a fully loaded WRX for this amount of money and have a lot more power, all-wheel drive, better performance, whatever. I wish there was a happy ending to this story, but it doesn't seem like there is. It's like the self-fulfilling prophecy of Acura putting zero effort into their products and consumers getting a zero-effort product that feels that way. This feels half-baked. It feels like it should have been so much more, but it never got there. So sorry to everyone watching who's holding out hope that the new Integra would be an exciting revival from the brand, but it just isn't. Terrible segue, I know, ending on that somber note, but if you haven't already, please like this video, even if you hate the car, and subscribe to the Hot Cars YouTube channel because it does help us do more car content in the future. And let's be honest, you need dissenting opinions like ours, otherwise car manufacturers are gonna keep making mediocre products like this and pass it on to you, the consumer, and that's not fair. So my name is Jake Stump, reporting for Hot Cars on the new Acura Integra. Go buy something else. anything else.